Hi, my name is Kayla, and I'm an associate lecturer for puppetry here at Wimbledon College of Arts. And today we're going to be making a foam sculpted bear head for puppets. What I really love about puppetry is I love creating characters and taking things from design all the way to realization. You can really create something from your brain, take it to life, and then put it on a stage or on film.
Step 1. Create a digital sculpt.
What we're gonna do today is we're gonna create a little bear cub, and so for that, what I'm gonna be using is a program called Nomad Sculpt. You could also find some different models online, but for now, I'm going to be sculpting this bear from scratch. Here we have the sculpt of the bear, and as you can see, it is done in all angles so that you can see its profile, its front, and its back. So as soon as I finish this, then I'm gonna take it into another app called Shaper 3D. And I'm taking it to this app so that I can split the bear head into different profiles, which is really important for the next steps after this. And as you can see here, I'm going to now start splitting it up into parts. Something that's really important is knowing the thickness of your plastisode. So for today, I'm gonna be using 20 mil plastisode, which means I need to split up my profile into 20 mil sections. Once I have all of the profiles, then I add some registration marks, which is where I'm going to run the kebab sticks through later on, which is really important when we get to putting our bear together.
Step 2. Create your profiles.
The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our projected profile is the right size. So the size that I want to make the bear is 220 mil. So I'm going to use a tape measure, and that looks about right. If you don't have a projector, you could also do this via printer and some digital softwares. And so that's our first profile. I'm going to take this off now and switch to our next one. Once you're done tracing all of your layers, then you can cut out each piece and we can start getting ready to put all of the profiles together.
Step 3. Tracing and cutting.
So first, we're going to put our pieces of paper onto the foam, and we're going to trace it with a marker or a pencil. We want to make sure that all the registration lines that we marked earlier are part of our traced piece, because this is going to be important when we put our pieces together. Then, with a sharp knife or a scalpel, we're going to cut out our outline to make sure that it is as accurate as possible. So remember to trace each profile twice, just because we're making a symmetrical model, and that way we have two sides of our profile when we put the whole model together.
Step 4. Glue.
So now that we have all of our profiles, we're now gonna put it all together. So what we need are a few kebab sticks and all of our profiles. As I mentioned earlier, we numbered each of them. So we're gonna start with number 1. We're gonna run our kebab sticks through all of the registration marks we made earlier. And then we're gonna get the second profile, and making sure we know which way is forward, we're gonna run them through the kebab sticks as well. We're gonna do this for all of our profiles to make sure that it is nice and stacked and as close as possible to our final sculpt. And for our last piece, we don't have a registration mark because it just sits on top. So now we have all of the profiles of our bear. We're gonna mark out where the glue is gonna go. So essentially, any point of overlap between the two profiles is something that we wanna take into consideration. So now that we have all of our pieces, I'm gonna take the kebab sticks out, and we kind of know where everything aligns. I'm gonna start the gluing process, and I'm going to glue on the profile within the area that I traced, as well as the other side of the profile, so that sticks together.
Wear a respirator if you have lungs.
Yeah, so now that I have my glue, I'm gonna add a nice thin layer of glue on top of each of my profiles, so keeping within the area we traced. So we want it to be nice and thin.
Step 5. Carve.
So now that we have all of our profiles stacked together, we now have a really nice rough shape of our bear. So this is half of the bear's head. What we want to do is we want to start carving down so that we get something nice and smooth and polished like this. So we'll be using different techniques like using a scalpel, using a knife, as well as using some sandpaper. So as you can see, you have a kind of a rough blocked out form. and then we're gonna get to this after we finish our carving process. So I'm gonna be using half of this head as kind of a rough guide. You could also use your 3D model on your iPad or your laptop so that you could really look around to see where your shapes are going.
Step 6. Add your fabric.
So for our bear, something I really want to do is I want to give it the illusion of it being fluffy without using actual like fake fur. So a fabric that I've chosen today is Hessian, and it's really nice. It's what they make sack out of, and it frays really nicely at the edges and just has this really wonderful texture. So for me to put all of the Hessian onto the bear, the first thing we're gonna need is a hot glue gun and some glue sticks.
The glue gun will be hot.
So first we're gonna cut some strips. So I'm doing them in kind of rectangular shapes. And the reason for this is because I'm going to be sticking one side of the Hessian down and fraying the other end. So once we have all of the pieces, we're gonna start sticking them onto the bear. What I know is that bears are fluffy at the edges and kind of the fluff comes into like a nice smooth edge. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna take my glue gun and some hot glue sticks, and I'm gonna hot glue the edge of the Hessian. So I'm gonna be doing a few layers of this until I get like a nice big patch of fur. So once we have a nice area of like filled fabric, we're gonna start fraying. So for us to fray, we're essentially going to remove the fibers that are running across the Hessian and just exposing the ones running vertically. Another thing about using hot glue gun is it will naturally stop fraying at a certain point, which is why we usually only glue the end bit. For this guy, I'm leaving the front of his face, so his eyebrow ridge and his nose and his muzzle, more smooth and not frayed, so that you have a really nice contrast between the frayed edges at the top of his head.
Step 7. Add the finishes.
Once you're happy with your bear and where it's all at, now the world is your oyster and you can finish it in any way you want. So here's one I made earlier. Here he is. So as you can see, I covered the whole thing with Hessian. I added a little nose and painted that black. So I went in with an airbrush to give it some really nice depth. I added some dark bits to his kind of right behind his brow line, inside his eyes, and then I highlighted some of the higher points in his face to give him a really nice finish so that he really pops on stage or on camera. And I've also frayed his ears a bit to give it a really nice silhouette so that it's really distinguishable from afar. If you don't have an airbrush, you could use anything that you could find in your house, like some paint, some paintbrushes, and you could really go into it. You could even add different finishes like some fake fur, some other kinds of fabric, maybe some sequins and some beading to just really make your character come to life. And that's your finished bear head. And now, once you have this, you can now attach it to your puppet so that you have a complete puppet for your show or your film. And here are some examples of us using the bear in the show, The Bear That Went to War. So our bear sculpt was used for the baby bear that features in the show, and it is puppeteered by one puppeteer, and you can see that everything in the show really brings it to life, including the sounds, the lights, and of course the puppeteer that breathes life into our little bear. And that's how you make a puppet bear head. Thanks for watching. Just kidding.